Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the video. The resolution and frame rate for Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain has been unveiled for not only the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One as well as the PC, but also the old generation of systems as well, for those of you who are still stuck on either the Xbox 360 or the PS3. So starting out with the next generation systems, the PS4 and the Xbox One. The PS4 is going to be 1080p, the Xbox One's 900p, but both systems are going to be native of 60 FPS. There are a couple of caveats and points that I'd like to make with this. The first is that 60 FPS is not necessarily always going to be 60 FPS. That doesn't necessarily, in other words, mean 60 FPS locked. So I will be curious to see when things go really busy on screen. We will of course be doing frame rate testing when the title is finally unveiled on September the 1st. We get a chance to actually play the full thing. But, you know, will there be frame rate dips? It's possible there will be. And if so, which system's going to hold up best? Well, who knows. Second point, resolution does not necessarily equal to graphic fidelity. So will we be seeing, say, inferior graphics on one version, or will they be exactly the same? We will find out. And the last point is the Xbox One version, as I mentioned, is 900p, while Ground Zeroes, which of course was on the PS4, Xbox One, PC and so on and so forth, on Ground Zeroes the Xbox One version was only running at 720p. So you could take this of one of a couple of different ways. The first is that Kojima's team is actually more familiar now with the Xbox One's hardware, therefore they're going to push more out of the system. The second way is you could say that, well, gee, you know, Microsoft's SDK has actually done a lot, and therefore developers are now able to tap into those additional reserves. And we've talked about the leaks previously, you know, we've done in-depth analysis, so if you want to check those out, you can either search on the website redgamingtech.com, you can type in SDK leak and a ton of stuff will pop up, or you can do so on the channel. And as I mentioned, we've talked about, you know, the 7th CPU core for the system being unlockable now, and, you know, developers can tap into that. We've discussed improvements to to the ESRAM utilization, improvements to the amount of performance you can get out of the GPU, additional drivers and all this stuff. So it's definitely possible to have all of that come together, maybe even in conjunction with familiarity. The developers have been able to push more out of the system, and therefore that's why we're enjoying the increased resolution on the Xbox One, which is obviously a good thing. Moving on to the PC, obviously your mileage will vary. If you're trying to run, let's say, on a GTX 750 Ti for the sake of argument, then you're going to have an inferior experience to someone who's running it like a, you know, a Titan SLI setup, just for the sake of argument. But if your hardware can support it, we will be seeing up to 4K support, 60 FPS, a bunch of visual improvements over the, you know, current or next generation systems, whatever you want to say. These obviously have been really pushed by Nvidia, so we're going to be seeing improved texture quality, improved lighting quality and shadows and all of that jazz. So it's looking to be quite a visual feast. We will of course be doing full comparisons when the game is once again finally launched. Now, if you are stuck with the previous generation systems, Xbox 360 or PS3, and you can't quite justify, you know, the expenditure to yourself just yet, which is still kind of a fair point because there's not a massive amount of really exclusive games at the moment on the next gen systems. So some people are still sticking with the old ones until Christmas time, which is kind of fair point, since there's probably going to be some really good deals on both the Xbox One and the PS4. But if you don't want to wait, you want to play Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain in the meanwhile, and you want to play it on, say, the Xbox 360 or PS3, you're going to be running at 720p, 30 FPS, and naturally you're going to also have to deal with inferior texture quality, definitely inferior shadows and lighting, and just basically it's not going to look quite as you would hope. It's not to say it's going to look awful or anything like that, but at the end of the day the hardware is not exactly new and shiny. You know, you're dealing with hardware that's basically 10 years old at this point, so they can do the best they can, and that's pretty much it. So I think the real story here is the fact that the team are actually pushing that much more out of the Xbox One's hardware. I think that's actually kind of cool, and does demonstrate that, you know, even with the same engine and just basically improved knowledge of the hardware and improved SDKs are actually starting to make a difference in this generation, and I think that's actually kind of nice. And obviously this will also improve things for the PlayStation 4 as well, because let's face it, Sony are not just sitting there with a thumb up its butt and saying, hey, look, you know, let's just let Microsoft improve its SDKs and we're not going to do anything. Unfortunately, I can only speculate on what Sony are doing, because unfortunately there's been no SDK leaks on Sony. So, you know, if one of these groups want to leak something, that would be pretty damn sweet, in my opinion. Not, you know, advocating anyone breaks the law or anything like that. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.